Hey everybody, Evan Kirstel here with another great discussion. Two industry veterans, marketing and product gurus here to chat about pulling off a successful product launch. Something we don't talk a lot about lately, but we're going to change that with this discussion. Joe and Julie, how are you?
Doing
Great. Thanks, Evan.
Great. Well, great to see you both. Joe, you're a legend in the enterprise software world. Julie, nice to meet you. Before we dive into our topic here on the product launch process and innovation in that regard, we'll do some quick introductions. Joe, if you would, maybe introduce yourself to the 10 people who might not know of who you are and your bio and your background, just for the audience here.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm super excited to talk about the topic that you teed up here. I've been a CMO for 20 plus years, interactive intelligence, Motivosity, Capteris, and Workfront. And then a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I stepped out of a daily operator role, and now I spend my time advising companies on go-to-market strategy, a lot around messaging and positioning, and we do quite a bit of work around product launches, which is what we're going to talk about.
Well, I can't wait to pick your brain. I have so many questions, but we'll get on to that in a second. Julie, longtime friend, collaborator of Joe's. Introduce yourself, a little bit about your firm as well.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. And so, yes, I had the incredible pleasure and privilege of working with and for Joe early in my career. And he has remained one of my closest and most influential mentors throughout my career. But I've been in a marketing role for 30 years now in just about every capacity, including product management and branding, communications. And about 20 years ago, left my corporate role, started an agency, and I've been doing marketing consulting and kind of fractional CMO work for about the last 20 years. And I've worked with mostly technology companies. That's really my sweet spot. Technology companies, and more specifically in telecommunications and in the healthcare space. So, and then about 6 months ago, decided to step away from the consulting world and get a real job, as they say. And I joined a fantastic company as the VP of Marketing, Concord Technologies, and they are a key player in the document exchange and interoperability space for healthcare organizations. So Concord helps companies manage their healthcare documents and the data contained on those documents a lot more efficiently by exchanging those documents, extracting that data, integrating it into other systems, and really helping to improve business outcomes, which leads to better patient outcomes. So
fantastic.
Hey,
well, that's
Evan,
a whole topic.
I want to jump in and just
yeah.
say that Julie's really the expert in this. She's done so many product launches, and every time that she was involved, the ones that she did, they just turned out so well. So she's the one that's going to give us the best hands-on stuff.
That's why I like hanging out with Joe. He's just, he's a great cheerleader.
He is indeed, and it's such an experienced group here. I think say about 100 years of collective industry experience, 30 plus on my side. So we have some stuff to share. So let's talk product launches. I mean, we've all seen good, bad, mostly indifferent, sort of so what kind of product launches.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my first question for you, Joe, is, what are some of the ingredients, the key factors when launching a product? I mean, you have all the textbook stuff, but in your personal experience, having done it so many times for so many companies, what are the considerations?
I think you used a really operative word there, indifferent. You watch a lot of companies, they invest all this money into R&D and engineering, and they build these great products, and then they kind of just toss it out there and think that everybody's going to come running to them and buy it. And that's, analogous to if NASA spent all this money building a rocket and then didn't put much fuel in it. You just don't get it off the launch pad, and it kind of flutters along. And then the company says, "Wow, did we build the wrong product, or what's going on here?" And a lot of it is inside the walls of your business. You're the only ones that actually know about it. So a lot of this is promotional. How do you make a big bang when you launch a product? I think one of the most fascinating things is everything changed when we went to the cloud, because we used to have these major launches, twice a year when software was packaged and came in a box. And now companies will introduce features, weekly, monthly, quarterly. And so that changed everything. And I think it created a little bit more of a challenge. What companies still need to do is, how do I group those things together enough that I can go out to the market and talk about something that people are going to pay attention to? So then back to the, more of the question that you asked around tactical pieces. I think building out a plan that is funded, that has money, that gets you in front of prospective buyers, that uses industry analysts and current customers to help you tell your story. All of those things are things that should go into this plan. I think one of the other challenges that companies face, and the reason they don't do good product launches, is product marketing people are hard. Good product marketing people are hard to come by. There are some marketing disciplines that it's pretty easy to find just about anybody, but good product marketers are hard to come by. And oftentimes they're a later hire. Startups will fund demand gen and graphic designers, and not really do much around product marketing. And I think that presents some of the problem as well.
Yeah, great points. Julie, any color commentary there? What else would you add to the mix?
I agree with everything Joe just said in terms of the tactical steps that need to take place once this product is baked, right, and ready to release out into the market. Where I see a lot of challenges, and I saw this quite a bit in my consulting life, is even before you get to that spot, it is so critical to understand, what do your customers need? What are their challenges? And are you actually delivering a new product that meets those challenges and solves those problems? Or are you building some cool new stuff because you can, because it's cool technology, because you think that's where the market and the industry it's going, and that's what everybody's talking about? And, so for me, in my experience, a successful product launch starts at the very beginning in a very effective marketing requirements document. Why are we building this? Who are we building this for? And what problems are we going to solve? And I think if you can really hone in on those questions and build something that the market is hungry for, then the promotional tactical part of it becomes a lot easier, because people are going to naturally gravitate to this. But I will agree with Joe in product marketing is a really unique and crucially important discipline, because the second challenge that I have seen all too often is companies are so excited to release all these new features and capabilities. And I think, Joe, your point is really, it resonated with me. Now that we've moved to the cloud, I see this where new functionality just kind of leaks out. It just drips out. There's no big impending launch like we were accustomed to many, many years ago. But, you see these new features and capabilities being released out into the market without anyone answering the "so what" question, right? So we've got this new feature. So what? What does that mean? What is that going to do for our customers? What is the, again, problem being solved? And so I really push my teams to constantly answer that question. So what? We've got this new capability. What is that going to do for our customers? How is that going to make their life better? How is it going to make their job easier? And I think all of those questions need to be really clearly answered and well defined before you even get into the tactical promotional piece of the product launch.
Great considerations there. The universal complaint, I hear, many of us hear from marketeers when launching products is, oh, I don't have the budget. I can't do the splashy launch. I can't throw the event I want to throw, or I can't do advertising. And, the complaint list is, this long. When in fact, I mean, many of the great product launches had no budgets. There was a lot of viral and organic kind of buzz built around that. So, I mean, Joe, how do you think about budget considerations around a product launch, and what can be done within those constraints?
So one real specific thing that has, I think, played well for me over the years is I look at the annual budget of what I'm going to do to promote that product. And I would spend, if this was a major launch, an initial product, I would spend 2/3 of that budget in the first 90 days. Again, I'm not a rocket person, but I don't know why I'm landing on these analogies. A rocket uses most of its fuel to just get off of the launch pad. I think the same thing's true with a new product. Is you've got to have a big enough bang, a big enough impact to cause people to go, wow, what is this? Let me go pay attention to it. And if you kind of stream and trickle that money out evenly, it's not going to happen. I worked for a company once, and when I arrived, they said, our product strategy is, they called it rolling thunder. They just wanted to have all of these ongoing, they were always making noise about the product. And the problem was that noise turned into white noise. Everybody just looked and said, oh, I don't know what they're doing. They're doing something else. Versus you really need to shake the earth to get people to actually pay attention to what you're launching. So the other part of the question is, how do you get budget? I think building out a good, solid plan and then presenting that plan with the funding needed is critical. If you start with, hey, I need some money to launch this product, what the CFO and CEO thinks is, I don't know what you're going to do with that, so no, you can't have it. But if you come and you say, we're going to do this, and this is what the impact is, and and then we're going to follow it on with this, you sell them, you get them excited about that, and then you say, it's going to cost us some money. Here's how much it's going to cost us. You're going to have a whole lot better chance of getting them to say yes if you've sold them on what you're going to do with that money before you ever ask for the money.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's a great takeaway tactic here on internal selling. And Julie, when you go to your board or your CEO, how do you position budget considerations and what you ask for versus what you hope to get?
Right. I mean, exactly what Joe just said. You have to have a plan. You can't ask for X number of dollars to launch a product. You have to have some very specific details on how that budget's being allocated and what you expect to get in return for that budget. And we have found, with the advent now, not now, I'm really dating myself, but so much can happen over social media that costs very little, right? So you can make a pretty big splash via social media if you get pretty creative with your announcement, if you've got a sizable following. And so I think there are creative ways to make a big impression that doesn't necessarily cost millions of dollars. And then I think timing is a real important piece of this too. Now that we're in our post-COVID phase, industry events, trade shows are back in force. And if your company is going to participate in a major industry event, that's the place to release your product. And so, if you can time the product release or at least the announcement around that event, it becomes this great catalyst in a great venue and opportunity to get a lot of exposure. And again, totally agree with Joe. The first 90 days are really critical. So that investment happens right up front. If you kick it off at a trade show and, you follow that up with a media tour and customer communications and promotions in that first 90 days, and you've got their attention, that's where the money needs to be spent for sure.
I'll give you one footnote to this. Ask for the amount of money that you think you can actually get. Too often, marketers will come in there and they'll build out these grand plans, and there's no way they're going to get that amount of money to launch the product. And so what the default is we're not going to give you any money, never mind, just we're not going to do this at all. So, carve it back. It depends on the size of your business, how much revenue you're bringing in, how much money you're spending on other things. But you should be able to look at the CFO and the CEO in the eyes and think, I really think I can get them to say yes to this number.
Well, and typically I would say, your budget for the most part is pretty well set, right, at the beginning of the year. So now it becomes a matter of how am I going to slice and dice this, right? And so if you allocated X number of dollars for this product launch and that's the number, then it's a matter of, okay, what's the best I can do within this budget, right? And how can I get the biggest bang for my buck within this amount of money? And then it's a matter of just being creative and smart about how you're using that budget.
Great.
Totally. I mean, and non-traditional ways, as you mentioned, Julie. I mean, I think of a million channels now that are super relevant to new product or service launches, like Product Hunt. I mean, didn't exist a few years ago. I mean, if you have a good launch on Product Hunt, you're gonna, it's your skyrocket your visibility and engagement, and that's all about community. It's really nothing to do with budgeting or marketing in the traditional sense. Well, let's switch gears a little bit to the difference between a new product launch, which happens, but maybe a little less common, and the launch of an update to an existing product, an iPhone 15 versus 14 versus 13, 12. I don't know. I'm going to buy it, but kind of less exciting versus, an Apple VR Pro headset. That's kind of a big deal. Joe, how do you look at those two categories?
So I'll give you the nuts and bolts. We would designate every product launch as a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3 product launch. And it didn't matter if it was new or an update to an existing product. It was really around how impactful is this? How much will people care about it? And it's really going back to what Julie said, looking at it from the customer's perspective. That's how we decided what was a level 1, level 2, or level 3. So if it had functionality and benefits that were just, new and innovative, and we really thought we could get traction with, that would be a level 1. And then there were specific tasks and activities associated with a level 1. If it was just, some minor updates, a couple new things, then a level 3 required a lot less effort, a lot less money. So that's how we categorized them.
Interesting. Do you have a system there, Julie, as well? Is it code red, orange, green? What's your
we haven't labeled
your preferred?
but I do like that idea a lot. Our consideration is typically around how will this impact our existing customer base? That is first and foremost, right? Is this, does this impact their environment? Again, I've spent my career in the technology space. So when we release a new update to an existing product, there's always consideration in terms of interoperability. What is this potentially going to break within their environment? And how are we going to make sure that doesn't happen? And how are we going to communicate out the parameters and the requirements and the prereqs of implementing this new version? So really focus on existing customers and how do we make this migration to the new version as smooth as possible. And once we've got that figured out, then, obviously there's a lot of time, energy, money spent in acquiring new customers with the latest product, but making sure we aren't doing anything disruptive to our current customers is really the first step for us. in rolling out a new product. And I will also say too, we spend a lot of time talking about pricing and new product introductions. When a new release is coming out, is there the potential to stall current sales in the pipeline? Is this going to create a situation where prospects who are in the midst of a sales process are going to go, well, I'm just going to wait for this new version? So there's always that really tricky fine line when you're talking about an upcoming product launch or an upcoming release, making sure you're working in lockstep with the sales team and you're not doing anything that could potentially stall or delay opportunities that are in the pipeline.
Yeah, great points. So let's talk about, Joe, the mix on getting maximum visibility around product launch. I mean, by traditionally, I mean maybe like 5 years ago, it was, press releases, meet the analysts, meet your favorite journalists, get a story. I mean, it was pretty cookie cutter. Now it's that playbook, it seems to me, is out the window. I mean, you've got, influencers like myself. You need a video strategy, you need a YouTube strategy. SEO has changed. Everything has gone digital. What's the current mix, do you think, Joe, in this modern period we find ourselves in? Or is it still similar to the good old days, the heydays of marketing?
I think there's a lot of things that you can still take advantage of that a lot of people think are gone. So rewind 10 years ago, if you wanted to get in front of editors, it was hard because everybody did it, right? Everybody did press tours and they showed up in New York and Boston and San Francisco and they wanted to meet with you and tell you what the new product they came out with. Almost all of those are gone. I've found now that if you go to, it could be an online publication, not necessarily a print pub. If you go to them and say, hey, I'm going to be in New York. I'd like to meet with you. Most of them aren't in the office, but they'll meet in a Starbucks. And you can develop relationships that were a lot harder 10 years ago because that space was so crowded. Now, if you're one of the few that show up in person, you get a lot of FaceTime and airtime and ink from those folks. You talk about influencers. I think the exact same thing's true. If you reach out and develop a personal relationship with them, and then when you're ready to share some product information, you're going to get a lot more traction. Jumping on a few of the other things, I think video. I think anybody that doesn't have a solid video strategy is antiquated or missing the boat or something. I don't know how you could do a successful product launch without video. And then the product demos, I think, are an interesting facet of this as well. The purpose of a demo is an interesting thing. Are you showing enough to where you're just trying to tease the person and you want them to see what kind of benefits there are? Or is this an in-depth video that is trying to prove out the things that your salespeople have already told the prospect? Differentiating those is important, but that demo strategy comes into play a lot. And then, other traditional paid search, SEO, all of those things come into play. I think that, if you rewound how we launched products 10 or 15 years ago, there were probably 3 or 4 things to consider. I think when you launch a product today, there's probably 20 things to consider.
Wow, that's quite a different mix. And Julie, can we finally agree to kill press releases? Is that I'm begging the industry, stop with the nonsense. But in all seriousness, what do you say?
Well, I don't know that I'm ready to kill press releases. I think they serve as I think they have their purpose, right? They serve as a pretty good springboard into other opportunities. And I think I agree with Joe. It's funny because the timing of this, we're somewhat in the midst of an announcement ourselves. And We have found certainly the face-to-face meetings that we can get with analysts or editors are absolutely worth their weight in gold. And it is that relationship. I think certainly, again, not to belabor the COVID piece of this, but we're seeing now this resurgence of just physical connection, people meeting in person actually for the first time after a couple of years. And I think people are really, really responding to that and gravitating to that. And so if you can sit down with a cup, have a cup of coffee with an editor, with an analyst, we just went through a process and with an research firm ourselves, and cultivating a relationship with that key analyst is very, very important. And so there are so many other tactical things, and obviously your digital marketing strategy. And I agree with Joe's points in terms of video being the sort of the table stakes now, right? When you are communicating out any announcement from your organization. But if you can make that personal connection, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be, I guess, in person. If you can really reach out, connect over, Teams or Zoom or whatever, but just do just a check-in, right? Just a touch point. It doesn't have to be always, I've got this great announcement here, I want you to do something with it. More of a, let's just talk about what's happening in the industry and share ideas and become more of a collaborator and a confidant with these folks. That goes a long way, and they'll definitely pay attention to whatever it is whenever you do have a really big announcement.
Yeah, great point. And Joe, how do you know if the product is ready to launch, and how do you make that decision? Do you have any anecdotes of failed misfirings in the rocket analogy here you want to share?
My goodness. How much time do we have? We can
not much, I must say, but yeah.
We can talk about failed attempts for a long time. For me, the biggest thing is the product and development people and the marketing people both have to be in agreement that the product's ready to go. The default should be, if one of those says no, then you don't go. Then you don't launch it yet. And their reasons are obviously going to be different. The engineers, the product people may say, hey, we're still fixing things, or we haven't finished enough things. The marketing people, the things that they would pull back on, Julie mentioned timing. You may want to time it with another event, or you don't want to risk cannibalizing current sales. So both of those have to say yes. If one says no, then the default is no wins.
Yeah, what a good point. And Julie, should you wait until the product is ready then, or does it ever make sense just to launch early, lead the market? What say you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I go back to the cannibalization piece of this. It really depends on. I work really closely with the head of sales, and any organization that I work with or for, having a really, really close alignment between the head of sales and the head of marketing is so critical. And if they feel like leading the market with a pre-announcement about an upcoming product or an upcoming release is going to cannibalize current opportunities in the pipeline, then that's a no. Then we pull back, or we figure out a slightly different strategy to start kind of infiltrating the market with this news. But that's a really important piece. And I would say too, in terms of how do you decide, again, product management, marketing, sales need to be in alignment. But ideally, you've done your homework with your customers. You've done extensive testing with your customers, and they've told you, this is baked. This is what we want. And so I think if you have that customer validation along with the other pieces between product marketing or product management, marketing, and sales, then you've got your green light.
Fantastic. Well, green light, that's what we want, in the words of what Matthew McConaughey, I guess, is the king of green lights. Well, that was really interesting and exciting insights. I'm really, there'll be a transcript of this. The AI will turn the transcript into a blog, and we could publish a book, product launch for dummies, all with a click of a button
Let's
here.
do it. Let's do it.
That's a great idea.
Actually, it's only kid. I'm half kidding. I mean, ChatGPT allows you to do that sort of thing now. It's pretty wild. But before we wrap up, what are you excited about? We're in the last days of August here. Joe, any travel personally, professionally, anything you're looking forward to in particular?
Summertime, we got all our travel in. Personally, I'm going to start teaching at a local university next week.
Cool.
I'm going to teach marketing, and I've probably wanted to do that for the last 15 years, and finally coming to fruition. So I'm excited to have my 37 students and see what we can accomplish.
Well, that's a class I would take online. So yeah, I hope there's an online
so
component.
Yeah.
Julie, what about you? I know you're super busy as an operator. You're doing a product launch. What are you excited about over the next few weeks?
Well, I live in the desert, so I'm really excited that summer is coming to an end. I'm very excited for fall. We've got a product launch coming up this fall. We are launching a new website at the end of the month. So we do have a lot. The fall is going to be very busy, but really exciting.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'm planning a business trip to Croatia with a new client for the first time.
Nice.
So I've never been, so that should be really interesting start to September. And yeah, thanks guys for, sharing, your amazing insights and tips and tricks and best practices. It was really informative for me and hopefully for the viewers. Thanks everyone for watching. As always, share, like, comment, and look forward to keeping in touch, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Evan. Bye, Julie.
All right.